Simone, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling excited because one of because of this interview,
Okay.
and then secondly because I'm flying to Orlando in the next couple of days for two events, and I cannot
Okay.
wait to be there.
All right. Simone, you fly around all around the world, giving speeches and supporting people. How does that feel?
Um, Depends on which day you ask me.
Okay.
So when I'm on stage and I
Okay.
do my part and I do my work, it feels amazing. Actually, I always say for me, whenever I deliver a talk, or whether it's online or in person, but in particular in person, is my happy place. That's where I'm one of the happiest people in the world. The time flies for me. I really enjoy that the thrill of being able to impact, share my knowledge, and in particular entertain people. I want people to have a
Okay.
good time.
Well, ultimately, you need to entertain people to some extent, right? So there needs to be something that keeps people engaged and present with you.
Exactly, and the reason why I said it depends on where you ask me, because if you
Yeah.
ask me while I'm ready to go on stage, I'm gonna be buzzing. And then if you ask me one of these days where things are not going well with the business, or I'm working really hard, and like in any business, you will have your ups and downs,
Yeah.
then I might tell you, oh, you know what, today I'm really frustrated. But fortunately, this week is not the case. I'm in flow,
I'm,
so let's keep riding that way.
I'm glad. I'm glad. And I mean, we're all human, right? So we all have those kind of moments. So it happens to the best of us, doesn't it not? So, Simon, how do you prepare? So, when let's say you are not feeling into it today, how do you mentally prepare to go on stage and deliver your best version?
Yeah, the way I prepare is a few different things. So if you mention, let's say that I'm not in the right mental state,
Okay.
and I had a tough week or I had a tough few days, and now I need to go and be ready on stage. First of all, I do the best I can to try to separate myself from everything that happens, or everything that is outside that moment of being on stage.
Okay.
There are a few exercises that I do where I energetically cut off, like literally, I see like scissors cutting off from everything that has happened before,
Okay.
and that really helps me being in the moment. That's generally the first thing that I do. So I'll go into a quiet place, close my eyes, and go through that process, because I don't need to bring my shit, pardon the French, right? Pardon the term, but I don't need to bring my negativity, if I have any,
Hmm.
into the audience. Because the mental state in which I'm in will determine what I'm going to say and how I'm going to respond to questions.
Definitely.
I'm sure, if someone comes to you and asks you for advice in a day where you are a 10 out of 10, the advice you give, the piece of advice you give, is different from the piece of advice that you would give if you had, let's say, a 2 out of 10 day.
Yes.
And so I want to make sure that I can give my 10 out of 10.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. And then the second, I'll do breathing exercises, because I want to calm myself down. I want to being able to be present as much as possible, because also before going on stage, it doesn't matter if I've did it 1,000 times. You still have the adrenaline. You still have this good nerves that are coming in because I care about
Yeah.
doing a great job. And so again, I want to calm myself down, because then I don't want to get on the stage and spend the first 5 minutes to get centered.
Mm.
I just want to come on the stage and be in flow, and not spend the first 5 minutes to get into my flow.
Yeah.
So these are generally what I do if I'm having a tough time, or if I'm not grounded, to make sure that I can deliver in the best possible way. And I
Hmm.
can give you an example if you want.
Sure.
I run one of the events that I run. It's called the Speaker Awards and Summit,
Okay.
and we have an event where we give professional awards to the top speakers in the UK, in this case, and Europe, and now we are expanding internationally with these
Okay.
awards. We have about 150 to 250 people attending that conference. So the most difficult speaking gig that someone can do is in front of other professional speakers that are at the top of their game. It's like
For sure.
you are judged on every single move, every single action, every single word that you say, because they are
You read
trained
the
in
lines
this
well,
stuff, right?
for sure.
And so that was July last year, and I was pacing up and down, pacing up and down. I was very nervous. Even if it was a speech I delivered many times before, but I
Yeah.
was just like very nervous. So I didn't have a quiet place where I could go. So I went behind the projector. We had a huge projector screen in this room. There was a white veil, so I managed to get behind the projector. No one could see me, and then spent 5 minutes calming myself down, doing these breathing exercises, doing the process I just showed you before,
Yeah.
so that I could go on stage. And even if in that moment it was high pressure, then I managed to do a great job and felt calm on the inside and not feeling that I needed to prove myself in front of that crowd, if it makes sense.
Yes, 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 and it's very humbling to see that someone like yourself with so much experience under your belt still experiences these feelings as well, because um, we all do. I think no matter um, at which point you're in, you can be presenting your first presentation at university, for example. The feelings are still there. They are still the same. You're just more well versed in how to behave, where to put your hands, how to behave, where you stand, how much to pace, for example, and even your tonality. You're just more experienced in that, but it doesn't make it even less um, easier, perhaps, because the crowd dictates how you're feeling, and for that matter as well.
It's about meaning. It's
Yeah.
about with the meaning that we attached
Yep.
to the moment. I'll give you another example.
Sure.
The first time I've ever delivered a talk in public, as part of what I would call my professional speaking career, right?
Yeah.
Like that. I was 23 at the time,
Okay.
and I was invited to deliver a speech in
Okay.
front of teachers as an alternative way to do lessons in classes. That was one of the things that I managed, that I got called to do. And because it was not something I was talking about every single time, it was a very new speaking gig. It was one of my first one, and I actually had more than 150 teachers in front of me.
Okay.
I was incredibly nervous. My palms were sweating. My chest was pumping like crazy. I was sweating as well. I was not a good look.
Hmm.
I managed to go through the speech. I think I didn't do a bad job. I didn't even do a great job. It was my first
Yeah.
one, so
Yeah.
okay.
You can't
I
complain.
survived. I
Yeah.
survived. That's the win. Tick.
Yes.
Fast forward uh, 4 years. At that point, I've already delivered. When I took it seriously, I started delivering more than 100 talks a year, organizing my own events. So by the time I was now 26, 27, I delivered more than 300 talks.
Okay.
And I did my first TEDx talk when I was 27. And in that moment when I did the first TEDx talk, I felt even worse than I felt on my first speech, even though I did more than 300 talks at that point.
Okay.
Why is that? Because it's the meaning that I assigned to TEDx. No, I'm here, I'm delivering a TEDx talk, it's a big deal.
Yes.
Because I
Yes.
kept telling myself it's a big deal. I felt it was a big deal, so I felt very nervous because it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so, my message for anyone that is watching or listening is it is normal to be nervous, in particular when you care and you think that something is very important for you.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter at what stage you're in. What's important for you will change at different stages, and so the emotions will be the same. But as you said, you'll just be better
I
at
think
managing it.
100%. I think, and I think that is the key word, is that the nerves should be there. And as you said earlier on, is that you always feel like this whenever you're giving a talk or a public presentation of sorts. So I think that kind of fear and nervousness or anxiety that needs to be there. But what we need to focus on is learning how to manage it internally. Even we can have can associate a high meaning to that presentation or talk that we're given, but we're learning how to manage things inside of us. I think that is more fruitful, that it will lead more fruitful results.
Exactly, I agree. And so at that point becomes a mixture of skills. So
Yeah.
you just become better, and so it becomes easier. Also, the more you have learned to manage your internal emotion, is quicker to
Hmm.
calm yourself down. And also, it becomes easier not to avoid the most important thing. In fact, I remember when I delivered my TEDx talk, I didn't, because I was avoiding it so much, I was procrastinating on it so much.
Okay.
I ended up 2 days before the talk that I didn't have my talk ready. And it was 2 days before the event. And and I remember my
You
wife,
rush through.
it's not that I rushed through, but normally I'm very prepared. Like I like
For
to
the
prepare
preparation, I
for the
meant.
talks. But it was just I was procrastinating because
The time
it's
comes.
almost like I was blocked. And I remember my wife sat me down and said, "You know what? You don't have a talk. Your TEDx is in 2 days. Are you going to do anything about it?" I said, "Okay, okay. Let me sit
I
down."
can down, I guess.
But again, going back to the meaning, right? This moment meant a lot to me, and because it meant so much, I didn't want to screw it up, and my brain or my emotion wanted to keep me safe. And in
Correct.
order to keep me safe, actually end up doing me a disservice. That means not being prepared.
Yeah.
It- At the end of the day, I rehearsed and it end up going
Yes.
well. But again, it's about meaning.
And let's say the worst case scenario happens, right? You're in the delivering the talk. For me, when I'm delivering either a workshop or a talk, even as well, usually my crowds are smaller than yours because of the context that I provide talks in, which is probably in work psychological settings. Um, if I feel agitated, and I remembered, so I'll give you an example as well. I share my experience as well. So one of my very few first workshops that I gave was um, in front of 14 top senior managers, four of which were CEOs. So I was just starting out my venture, and I felt really pressured. And to top it all, um, the material that I've prepared, I had to change it on the fly because I was noticing certain dynamics that were happening as I was delivering the workshop. I thought they have other problems to solve, so let's scrap what I've prepared and deal with the current situations. And I remember that we dealt with certain communication problems, so I was pressured to because of the crowd of the audience that I had in front of me, and that I had to change the topic on the fly. But ironically, that gave me more a sense of groundness, even maybe because of the thrill, maybe because of the focus that I was in. And this was quite intense because this was over a span of 8 hours, so it was a full day of intense workshop, I would say. So, but what I mean to say is the moral of the story in this is that when I feel that way, I sort of like ground myself in the moment. I become aware of my senses in that moment that I'm feeling panicky. I'm feeling anxious in this. Not sure if that is the same experience for you, or or you have another tactic.
No, it is the same, and of course we're all different, right? There are some people that thrive under pressure, which
Hmm.
means they're very good at responding in the moment.
Hmm.
So, for example, like in your situation, you had nowhere to go. You had to make those changes and you had to
Oh, for
deliver
sure.
your presentation. So there wasn't a plan B. That was the only thing that you could do.
Yeah.
Which means in that case, you said, okay, let me focus in. And if you are the kind of person who thrives under pressure, then it means that you thrive in that situation. Actually, those situations, they calm you down because they make you present.
Mm.
Not everyone is like that, though. Other people, they thrive by being prepared and
Yeah.
thoroughly preparing their talks, their materials. And actually, you give them a curveball at the end like that throws them off completely.
For sure. For
Uh,
sure.
so I'm more like you in that sense that if I need to do things last minute or in the moment, I love responding and what's in and
It's more
changing things.
enjoyable.
Exactly. Like I find that I'm at my best in high pressure or like last minute situations. Like I need to think on my
Yeah.
feet. Great. I need to be prepared and plan and so on. No,
The
that's not
longer
my
I
biggest
plan,
strength.
the longer I screw up, I feel. So,
Exactly. Correct.
and same goes for this podcast, right? So we had an initial meeting and we set up a particular team, but we have no particular questions. If I do have particular questions, most probably I will screw them up. So, so it
Because you
goes to
like to be in the moment and present
yes,
in that
yes, yes, yes,
conversation. And so I think that for everyone who's watching or listening, you got to know yourself.
100%.
If you are the kind of person who thrives by being prepared, then
Yeah.
prepare, because you know that your nerves would be less on the stage. If you are the
Hmm.
kind of person that thrives by responding at what's going on, then you might do less before in terms of preparation, but you will create more space during the event, during that time, because then you can observe, you can see what's going on, and then you can adapt your presentation
Hmm.
according to what the event requires. So
Hmm.
different styles.
Yeah,
There's enough for everyone.
definitely. Where did this love or passion for public speaking start from, Simone?
Um, there are two things that I think come to mind. One, it was innate, like it's just part of who I am. Since I was a kid, I remember my mom saying, "I cannot leave you one moment alone." That there is Simone in a corner, surrounded by people, talking to all of them. Right.
Okay.
So a part of me has always been very sociable, very I like to entertain. I like to have people listening to me. And I've always been that kind of person. In fact, even in my group of friends, I was always one of the leaders, one of the people that were the most vocal. When in the kind of things that I would do, I would thrive more, for example, in oral exams compared to written exams, because I love to express myself more verbally rather than writing. So it's been something that has always been part of me. That's
Hmm.
number one. And then fast forward, let's say when I was 23, I came to the UK working as a waiter. That was my job before, and I had a really good career because I started working in restaurant when I was 14. At the age of 19, I managed my first Michelin star restaurant. So I was giving my all, and I loved that career. Then from Italy, I moved to the UK, learned English, started working in a Michelin star restaurant in Notting Hill. And then when I was 23, I attended a seminar that was talking about coaching and public speaking. It was a friend of mine that recommended me to that seminar. It was my day off, so I said, okay, let me go. And I don't know if you ever had one of these moments where you know that you are at the right place at the right time. You can't really explain it.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
just know it.
And everyone experiences very, very, very differently. But I know what you mean.
And that's what I felt in that moment. I
Okay.
attended that workshop, and something in me said, that's what I want to do. And it was the same feeling that I had when I made the decision to move from Italy to the UK. I knew it was the right decision. I couldn't explain why, but I knew it was the right decision. It was the same feeling that I had when I started my catering career at 14, decided not to go to school anymore. I finished school, but I wasn't going that much.
Hmm.
But I knew it was the right thing for me. And again, I cannot explain it, but I knew it was the right thing. And so that was the moment that I said, okay, let me work on it. Let me develop this. Because also for me, working in a restaurant, what I loved about it, it was the communication with the clients.
Mm.
Was not about putting plates on the table. It was not about that.
Yeah.
For me, it was how can I entertain people? How can I make sure that they have a good time? And that's why I had such a good career there, because people wanted my communication skill and the way I was interacting with clients in
Hmm.
the restaurant. And so at that moment, I was okay. Yes, this is what I want to do. And like in anything I do, if I want to get something, I'll go
Yeah.
out and get it, and I work my ass off. And that's where the training started.
Yeah. From the start, so you said that you started at 23. Obviously, when you attend a seminar or you attend a conference, and even if you have that kind of light bulb moment, we romanticize our visions, right? Since that time until today, what surprised you the most in your career? Something that you didn't expect when you were 23. You didn't expect to learn a particular lesson, or you didn't expect that you do something with your career in a particular way, which is different than what you envisioned.
Hmm. I think how hard it was going to be.
Okay.
That was that's definitely by far how hard it was going to be,
What's hard about it?
because you to have when you have a speaking business, most of the
Yeah.
time you spend 80% of the time not speaking but doing what's necessary for the speaking business to work.
Yeah.
In particular, for the first 5 to, let's say, 5 to 10 years sometimes. I've been doing this now for professionally for 14 years,
Okay.
and I'm in my 14th year right now. And the biggest one was how hard it was going to be, because it's not just about getting the skills of speaker. So
Mhm.
first is about becoming a good speaker. So let
Yep.
me invest and learn and put time and practice in the skills. English is not my first language. For the
Yep.
first 4 years, people could not understand what I wanted to talk about. I was giving presentation, they were raising their head and say, "Hey, can you please repeat it? I don't understand."
No, I can tell that you really worked hard on it.
Worked really hard on that, because at the
And
same time, I don't want to lose myself. I don't want to lose my Italian accent. Is what gets me somewhere, right? Is what makes me unique. But at the same time, I gotta make sure people understand what I talk about.
yeah.
So that was the second part, working on my skills, my pronunciation, working on my nerves, working on my material. What am I going to talk about? Then the other part is that no one wanted me to speak at their event because no one knew me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so now I've got this presentation. What do I do? Well, let me create my own events. I want to speak. I don't need to wait for someone else. Let me create my own stage. So I created my event company. Now I got to learn how to run an event and seminar company,
Yeah.
how to get people in the room, how to make sure to market, promote the events. Now I got to make some money out of this because I've been working for 4 years without making any money. So what am I going to do now? Let me learn how to productize, monetize, learn sales, learn marketing. And that's the other skill to learn. And so it's kind of never ending. And I think that sometimes when we romanticize the moment of, I want to be on that stage.
Yeah.
But you can be on the biggest stage with the biggest influencers and so on. That moment goes away very fast.
Yeah.
I've done events with Les Brown. I've done events with Gary Vaynerchuk. I've done events with the son of Tony Robbins. I've done events um, with Simon Sinek. I've done events with a lot of big names in the industry. They're a moment. That moment is great, but then you go back to business the following day,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that if you're not the reason why a lot of speakers they don't make it professionally is because, one, they don't treat it like a business, and two, they are not in love with the process of what is the process that I need to go through to learn the skills that I need in order to achieve a certain level of success in a consistent way, not just a one-off.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so difficult. That's why not many people make it, but also that's why it's very worth it.
Yeah. I appreciate your honesty in this, and it is very true. Sometimes the we see the end result of what that might look like, or the feeling that we get if we are on that stage, but getting to that stage is a totally different ball game. And I can resonate with that because 4 years ago, it's almost 4 years ago that I started my own business endeavor. But the podcast is part of that as well, and it's a, it's slightly on a different. It's different, but obviously it's on the same wavelength because I can resonate with what the lessons that you've learned: marketing, sales, productizing your product. So how are you going to sell reducing stress at the place of work? That's usually the most common topic that we receive quotes on. And then how can you rope other people in? How can you make yourself um, following your strengths? Because once you get people on board, then it becomes a different ball game as well. So there are a lot of and I love the way that you um, explained it. There's also like there's a new thing that I need to learn. There's a new thing that I need to learn in order for it to make sense as well. Um, so yeah, definitely things are very, very underestimated, I would say. And sometimes when we get an idea, we think that it's easier. Usually it takes 3 times as much effort minimum until
But
we
it's also good that is that way, though,
yeah.
because if we go into it thinking that we are going to fail, what's the point,
Mm,
right? And I think that a good naivety and ignorance is good,
yeah.
because that's what get us actually to move forward. Not to, if you think about it, moving to a new country, learning a new language.
Yeah.
If you have to list all the challenges that you can get, now it's like, why am I going to do that? It's
Yeah.
going to be very difficult.
Mhm.
But if you're focused on, no, it's going to give me an opportunity that I will never have in my own country, that's the dream, that's what we are attached to. And so I think it's also important to say, I want to do this, let me
Hmm.
figure it out, because also the journey is different from each individual. So my journey is my journey,
Yeah.
your journey is different, someone else's journey is different.
Hmm.
I remember one of the biggest skills that I wanted to learn was selling one to many, which is selling from seminars, selling from webinars, selling my pro courses, my programs, from a sales presentation, doing a workshop or a training. That was one of the skills that I really wanted to learn.
Hmm.
And it took me, I think, 15 events before I made my first sale. And 15 events where I sold or I pitched and where nothing happened. And then I worked with a client, and a client made about like $20,000 the very first time that she pitched. So a part of me is like, I wish that happened to me. Like for me, I had to work my arse off. It took me 15 events, taking those notes and working really hard.
For
And then
sure.
you're doing it for the first time and you're crushing it.
For sure.
And so that's why I think it's good to think about focus on what do I need to learn from where I am
Hmm.
to get to the next level. And then when you find a problem, finding a solution to the problem, knowing that your journey is different from someone else, but you can get the support and help that you need from the other people around you that are part of the same journey.
Yeah. So two things came to mind as you were explaining this, Simone. One, I think the first one is that I think as adults we underestimate the learning curve. I think most adults assume that because we're adults we learn things faster than we were children. I think that's an assumption of mine. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the feeling that I get.
I agree.
Um, uh, so we give a child the time to learn, but as adults, we feel that we can learn things very, very quickly, which is still, if something is new to us, it's still new, as if something was new to a 10-year old, right? So I think we underestimate a lot the the learning curve that we have. Um, the second one is that we we assume that there is someone that can give us all the answers, and that is where mentoring comes in. That is where coaching comes in. There is no single person, I believe, that can give us the answers. We sort of like, it's like a puzzle. We collect the puzzle pieces from many people, and then we are the one that have to assemble the puzzle ultimately, because the product is ours, the company is ours, the business is ours. So we can bring the puzzle together to
I
make
agree.
it all make sense, so to speak. And that's also and there's also a lot of lessons in that, because we have to be vulnerable, we need to seek feedback, we need to be mature enough and emotionally ready to receive feedback and to dissect our thoughts, and it's another process altogether in that. So not sure, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. You got the right point. We don't give ourselves enough space or grace to actually grow. And sometimes it's because we have a lot of pressure. We have a lot of demands. It's like if you had £1 million or $1 million or whatever, or €1 million sitting in your bank account, it's different. You have a different level of pressure to learn a skill or to make it work.
You still need
If
to
you don't
invest.
know how to pay your rent at the end of the month,
Yeah.
I gotta become good, and I gotta become good fast, because
Yeah.
otherwise I ain't gonna eat.
Yeah.
And the amount of times in my business where I had to scrape money, finding money from like literally from drawers, just so that I could pay my boss so that I can go to work. First 4 or 5 years, I was taking my bicycle everywhere. I had no money. It was an adventure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not that I had the luxury of, oh, let me just learn the skill at a certain pace. Actually, I think that that urgency, and because I had to make it work so bad, helped me gain those skills much faster,
Yes, yes. And that's
because
also
I was putting a lot of hours and a lot of intent in. I think that the problem happens when we then try to learn too many skills at the same time.
yeah,
Right? I need to learn how to sell. I need to learn how to market. I need to learn how to speak. Now I need to learn how to get featured on podcasts. Now I need to learn how to get featured on publications. Now I need to learn how to create products, how to create services. And then we put so much on our plate that it becomes impossible to actually become good at any of these things. And so I knew that for me, speaking was going to be the main skill, and having a speaking business was going to be the main skill that I wanted to develop. And so
Mm.
for the first 10 years of my business, I only focused on that skill. I only focused on anything that was around the speaking business. No other distractions. And because of the volume of speaking and events that I was doing, that's where I could see I was getting good really fast. Or not getting good, getting better
Yeah.
really fast. And then you arrive at a point where you have other people saying, "Oh wow, you're really good. How do you do this?" I
Well,
mean, yeah,
well,
you're
just woke up this morning doing public speaking.
listen to the Growth Schema podcast, and I'll share it. Like you listen, you hear the full story. That's probably gonna be my answer moving forward. Let me send you this podcast link, and you will see
Here you
what
go. This is my
what
answer.
what the answer is. What I think in my core message here about this segment is uh, greatness cannot be ignored. And that was a message that a mentor gave me when I was 23, when I started, and he said, "Simone, remember, greatness cannot be ignored. If you become so good that people can't ignore you, you're never going to have problems in your life or in your business." And I believe it's true. I believe it's true. Because if you work to become so good, then when someone sees you, says, "Oh my God, I want you in my team," or "I want you as a business partner, I want to collaborate with you, or let's do something together,"
Mhm.
then your doors are always open. And that's, I think, the focus of everyone. Sometimes we focus so much on, "I need to grow my business, I need to get sales," instead of, "How can I create something or become so good that I cannot be ignored?"
Mm.
You reach that level, something somewhere somehow is going to happen. It's just mathematical.
Yeah. Lovely phrase. I think that will be the title of this podcast, to be honest.
I like it.
Because it's very very true. I mean, if you're good at what you do, you might not be the best, but you're great at what you do, because there are various perspectives and people like this, people like that. So there are various things. But if you're good and great at what you do, that cannot be ignored. So thank you for sharing that. That's one thing that I will take home with me for sure. Simone, what is one skill that you're focusing on learning or mastering at the moment?
Building my audience.
Building your okay
Yeah, audience growth.
for the events.
For my business in
Okay,
general, for events, for anything in particular, building my audience in online. I'm really good at converting. So my main skills is selling,
okay,
and so if someone gives me an audience, I've always been really good. Not always, but after a few years, I've become
yeah,
really good at monetizing it. So that's
okay,
why I made a few millions just by having like a very small audience.
okay,
Not too much of a reach, but I was good at building a relationship in person. And so running an event business before we moved everything online, all my relationship were in person, so that's where I thrive.
okay,
And now I'm in a stage where we stopped running events after COVID. We moved all our businesses online. We have our main training, which is a webinar agency where we teach other speakers how to sell their products and services using webinars. And I could have a much wider reach.
okay, for sure.
And the skills required to monetize an audience, they are different from the skills required to building an audience. It's a completely different mindset.
Okay,
It's a complete different outlook on what kind of content to put out there, what kind of message to put out there. Because the message that converts is not the same message that gets someone to be interested in the first place.
mhm,
So that's what I'm learning at the moment, and that's the next stage of my life and my career.
okay. Very interesting. What's something that you've learned that surprised you in that sense? Because um, I can see the difference. So I'm not well versed in this area, but I can see the difference that I think there's a lot of psychology into converting um, uh, some even a piece of content into a sale, for example. What's something that you've learned that surprised you in this process so far?
On audience growth and audience building,
The
you mean,
conversion.
or
Uh,
conversion?
yep, the conversion.
For me, conversion is about having understanding the kind of conversation that their client is having in their head.
Okay.
What gets someone to buy is a feeling of trust. I trust you. I want to feel heard. I want to feel seen. And I want to understand that my money with you is safe. Think about it. If you were 100% sure that every investment you make gives you a return, you would have no problem making that investment. You will have no problem finding the money to make that investment or that payment.
Mhm.
If you knew 100% with certainty that it was going to give you exactly what you wanted. But
Mhm.
when you're working with someone, or you're hiring a mentor or a coach, or you're hiring an agency and so on, there is an element of skepticism. I don't know if what you say you do is exactly what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And so I think that the more we can get to understand the fears, the frustrations, the challenges, and what makes someone buys, depending on also their own personality,
Yeah.
that's when the conversion happens. So now I can give you an example. One of the things that I've realized, for example, is that while I was selling my webinar training, my webinar courses, a lot of people were saying, "Not right now," and I was like, "Why is that?" Like, I know this webinar training is great. We have a lot of social proof. We have a lot of results. We have done it with hundreds of people. Why people say no right now? They don't say no, but they will say, "I love to join, but not right now. I love to join, but not right now." And just because they're having that conversation anyway, like if someone is not interested, they will not even respond.
Mhm.
Like if you're not interested in buying something, you will ignore that email. You will
Yeah.
ignore that phone call. So just the fact that someone responds for me means they are interested enough
Yeah.
to
To listen.
considering buying, and they're interested enough to actually tell me no right now.
Mhm.
And so while I was having conversations with people, then I found out that a lot of people didn't buy my webinar training because they said, "I don't think my offer is good enough to be sold on a webinar," or "I don't have a good offer," or "I don't have an offer at all." So now the steps of the webinar was too far ahead for where a lot of them they were.
Okay.
And so with this, I said, "Well, if I added something to help you with your offer, would you buy right now?" And everyone said yes, 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 yes. Now that informed how what I include in my product and services. In fact, then one of the modules that we added was, "Let us help you create your offer."
Yeah.
And it sold like crazy, that particular program. And so it's about identifying for me, like, what is stopping someone from saying yes. So what can I do? What can I add? What can I say? And you only find out by having conversations with people.
Mhm.
And which I think that sometimes in the online world we tend to hide
Yes.
behind the keyboard, or we tend to not invite that conversation. It's like, "Hey, but I want to understand from you, why are you not buying?"
Yes.
What will make you buy? What can I do for you that will make you buy? These are some of the best questions that you can ask someone, because otherwise you're just assuming.
How, let's imagine I respond to that question. You're too expensive, which is I'm pretty sure that you've got that multiple times.
Um,
Would you try to sell to someone like with that response?
it depends. So I don't get that objections quite a
Okay.
lot, because I've priced my business to cater to different audiences,
Okay.
and this has been my choice.
Okay.
Someone if someone wants to be premium, if you go and you want to buy a Rolex, and you go there and say it's too expensive, they say that's the door.
For sure.
That's what I gotta say.
Yep.
That's the door. It's too expensive. You don't have the money. Hey, my problem is your problem. Earn more. I, that's what. So if you want to build a premium brand, then actually you're going to turn away way more people than you're gonna say yes to.
Hmm.
My brand is not a premium brand. Actually, I have tiers. So
Okay.
I price my services based that. So I have something for everyone. If someone wants to give me $50,000, they can give me $50,000. And if someone wants to give me $7, they can give me $7. I got the full range.
You have a range. Okay.
And so because I wanted a business where anyone could experience my work, and depending on the price that they have, then I have a product or a service for them. It also took a while to build those. It's
Yeah.
not didn't happen overnight, but that's the kind of business, like I want to have a business where basically someone can always buy from me.
Fair enough.
And so what if someone asks me, this is too expensive? Let's say that we are having a sales conversation and someone
Yeah.
asks me, this is too expensive. At the beginning of the conversation, I ask one question that really helps me out, which is, if I could help you only with one thing, and you said, Simone, if you could help me with that thing, I'm willing to invest and spend money on it because that's the biggest thing you can do for me. What would it be? So I started with, this is one of the first questions that I asked during a consultation, or some of my salespeople asked during a consultation. This sets up the answer later on, because if someone later on, and let's say we present a program and they say, I'd really love to join, but this is too expensive, I cannot afford it. Then I say, okay, what is a budget that, what is a number that if you said it right now could be a yes, a straight yes? What will be a number that will be a straight yes right now that you have? And they will say, oh, maybe I can do 500, maybe I can do 400, maybe I can do 1,000, maybe I can do whatever it is.
Mhm.
Then I say, okay, well, for that, I can solve the biggest problem that you said is the biggest problem, and I can solve it in this format.
Okay.
So then I give a format that I'm willing to give. I solve their biggest thing, so then we work only on the biggest priority in a budget that works for them. And then, of course, that depends on the number that they give, because if they say, hey, I got $5, they say, well, I'll see you next time, or this is an online course that you can get for 7. So, but, right? But unless they come out with a number that doesn't, that is, I think that the first step is really asking a question. It's like, what will be one thing, one of the biggest priorities? And then after that, ask, okay, what will be a number that will make you say yes straight away? That you say, okay, we work together and we can work on your biggest priority, and we do that. Then we can decide after we finish with this what else we can do. And
Okay.
often that turns a lot of no's into yeses.
Hmm. Hmm. Can see that. That's something that um, I actually use in the sense that phasing out, because sometimes identifying the root cause of the problem, I think it's more important what the client values. I think it's weird, but instead of going for the low hanging fruit, you're going for the main cause of the problem, at least in my case. And then you build up into the surrounding smaller problems. Because usually when you go, you dive deep into the core of the problem, other problems arise, and which are tend to be smaller in a way. It's not usual. That tactic doesn't work all the time, and with every client, of course. But that's something that I've tried and tested as well. Simone, going back to something that you pointed out just a while ago, is the preparing yourself to pitch, preparing yourself um, to prepare your sales pitch or sales idea. I think that's very very important as well. You made me remember. So one of the trainings I enjoy the most is preparing people to have a difficult conversation with someone at work. And I think that my starting my starting phrase or my catchphrase in that is that, where do you position yourself in this conversation? Because morally or personally you might agree or disagree, professionally you might agree or disagree. So our personal side and professional side might either agree or disagree with that particular case. So for example, let's say someone comes late at work. Personally I don't care, but professionally I have to care because I'm managing that person, right? So where do you position yourself, and understanding where you position yourself, how do you feel about it, and what can you do about actually what is within your control and what it's not. I think that's very, very important as well. So understanding um, what is a potential failing point in your sales pitch, that's also very valuable as well. And it's good for you that you understood or you asked that question in the first place to these people who said, for now, no. I think that's power there as well.
Yeah, it comes down to curiosity.
Yeah,
I'm curious about what the other person thinks.
yeah,
I'm curious about how can I do things better so that the right people can I can do business with the right people, and the right people can do business with me. And I think
It's
it
easy.
came down to even the catering days. Right? If a client came into the restaurant, and some people come into a restaurant and you can see they just don't talk to me. I had a rough day. Don't just leave me
Yeah,
alone. Give me my bottle of wine and my
yeah,
meal, and I'm good. All right.
yeah.
So even just seeing, even in that situation, how can I make that person feel better than they left? And it doesn't mean being pushy. It doesn't mean being on their face. It doesn't
On
mean
top, yeah,
being, because that can backfire
yeah,
completely, right? But
yes.
it's like, what can I do to make sure that they get a smile in a moment of stress? And I think one of my biggest mentors in the catering industry was my floor manager, was telling me, like, be curious about the people that you're working with, be curious about the customers, because you never know what kind of opportunities you're going to get. And
Hmm.
actually, because of the curiosity that I had, that's how I arrived in the UK, because I got curious about serving a client, which was Italian and was speaking English. I was practicing my English where in Italy where I was working,
Right.
and I started interacting in English with his daughter's friends, and they were like children. They were like 13, teenagers. So I put some effort trying to, just like speak English to them, and my English was very bad at the time.
Yeah.
And that guy ended up offering me a job to work in his Michelin star restaurant in Notting Hill.
Hmm.
He said, I want someone like you in my restaurant. Do you want to come? I was like, okay. I made sure that there was the due diligence, took a couple of weeks to make the decision. But that comes down to curiosity. And so I
Hmm.
think that for everyone that is watching or listening, if you're curious about the people that you're selling to, then you will always have the answers that you need, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to. Um, I think the answer that I always give, or the lesson I always give to my clients is, your clients have all the answers. You ask your clients, they will tell you exactly how they want things and what they want.
Hmm.
And then based on that, you can make your own decisions. Of course, it's your business, right? You can make your own decisions, but have curiosity. And I think some people are so afraid of having this kind of conversations that
Hmm.
they stop being curious, and therefore they don't have great
Hmm.
businesses.
Yeah. I think I think it's the fear of appearing stupid, perhaps appearing like you don't know what you're talking about, and sometimes that's beneficial as well because it shows us the cracks that we have. So it shows us the things that we need to improve upon as well. So, and as you said earlier on today, sometimes even you can have 300 shows that you did, 300 talks that you did, but then the 301st one you still feel or you do something that you're not happy about, perhaps. I think that no matter how much we do things, sometimes we either we don't perform at our best even though we're experienced. If we're experienced enough, then we can get away with it in some way or another because we become clever at hiding certain things by time as well. But ultimately, I think curiosity is also very, very important. Curiosity in ourselves as well. Um, so I think that's also very valuable. So being curious on other people and asking the right questions to other people, and but be curious about ourselves. Why did I ask that question, for example? Why I was feeling in that way in that particular moment?
Yeah,
So I think asking those questions is also, at least for me, that's valuable as well.
I'm with you. I'm 100% with you.
Simone, you mentioned that at the moment you're working on um, delivering webinars and trying to find conversion in that. And you mentioned that you are um, trying to be more active in podcast. I'm curious, pun intended. I'm curious, how does a podcast sound like and differ from a talk?
Very different. Very, very different. In a talk, uh, you have your own material. You are in control from start to finish about what you're going to say. Of course, unless you add an element of Q&A. Right?
Hmm.
But if you're delivering a talk or I'm delivering a workshop, I know from start to finish what the flow is going to be, and I control the tempo.
Yeah.
I control everything. I control the exercises. I can control the emotion of people, what people are going to feel. They're paying attention, they're not paying attention. There are ways mm, to create that sense of movement within the room, whether you have 3 people or whether you have 1,000 people. Uh, a podcast is different because it is more of a conversation. You just don't know most of the time where it's going.
Mm.
Unless you have, of course, I've been doing podcasts for many years, and you have people that are more structured. They'll send you the list of questions that they're going to ask you, and it's like, hey, be prepared for those questions. But personally, I don't find this kind of podcast engaging because I'm overthinking my answers. And also, in fact, even if someone else sends me the questions, most of the time I don't look at them at least like until 3 minutes before the interview, because I want to still sound natural. I don't
Mm.
want to sound like I've rehearsed these answers. And in the podcast, if you think about how people are listening to podcasts, it's different from how people are attending a talk.
Yeah.
If I'm attending a talk, I'm expecting something which is well
Yeah.
prepared and well rehearsed. If I'm listening to a podcast, most of the time I'm listening to it while I'm doing 500 things at the same time. I might answering my emails, I might be jogging, I might be working out, I might be driving and have it in the car, I might be commuting, whatever. So you're doing the context in which someone listens. I think they're more interested, or personally I found, more interested in those kind of things that they sound like a conversation. And they're more entertaining. So they have stories and they're more entertainment compared to um, a structured presentation, right? So
Yeah.
that's the difference. In particular, with a podcast with a host, that's I found to be the difference.
Yeah. So it's like the pacing, which is slightly different, and then the control, where the control is either where you're the host or or you're the guest. I've been at both ends. I've been the host, of course, but I've been the guest as well in some podcasts as well. I can't say which I prefer the most, honestly, because they both teach you something uh, about yourself, and it's nice. Um, Speaking from my personal experience, I'm usually the one asking questions, even in my line of work. So sometimes it's nice to change that and to be asked the question as well. Speaking of which, this is something that I usually do in the podcast. Simon, do you have a question for me?
Question for you: what was the most important talk you've ever delivered in your life?
Okay, that's a first. The most important talk. I think the one I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be a party pooper, but that was actually the most important talk because of the stakes that there were in that we were in. Actually, let me choose another example. I think it was a recent one, a fairly recent one. It was towards the end of last year, and this was a client, the second biggest client of my business. So the stakes were a little bit high, going back to the meaning that we attached. It was something that I delivered multiple times. It was about productivity at the place of work, so something that I've done multiple times, but because of the stakes were a little bit higher, because this is a multi-phased project, I wanted to get the first phase really, really right. So the first impression with the audience was very meaningful to me. Luckily, we did very well because I wasn't the only one. This was a constrained talk. In a way, and then we're moving on to the next phases. So I think that would be the second most important one.
No? How did it go?
Done very very well. This now we're going to start the second phase of the project. Actually, this we went directly to the main cause of the problem, and now we're trying to solve the ones in the periphery. So I think it worked really really well. Um, and we did one-to-ones with these individuals. We did another workshop then, so it grew little by little over the span of months. But the most important valuable things is in the one-to-ones. I do a lot of one-to-one work, mostly in terms of coaching, and I think that is where people grow, because during the talk or workshop you're scratching the surface, you're giving something very generic, but then in the one-to-ones you can dive deep and personally. Um, how do you feel about this tool? What can you do better? And you do a lot of personal work and on that front. Thank you for asking the question.
You're welcome.
Simona, we're drawing the end of our episode, and I have one final question for you. I wanted to ask you if you could deliver one main message to the world. If you have a megaphone at the moment, what would that be? What lesson would you like to part to the world?
I think right now, the message that comes to me is probably a message that I need to hear myself. So I'm going to say what's coming to me right now, which is play more.
Okay.
Play more. Yeah, if we tied it back to the conversation that you had before, talking about when we were children and how much like time we would take to learn something, to figure things out, and we often do it through play when we are kids. And I think that in the past few years, I'm generally quite a playful person, and I love playing. And in the past few years, I've been putting my head down and becoming too much of a responsible adult. So, which I gave this keyring to one of my best friends from Italy. I found this quote; it was hilarious. As I being pretending to be an adult is exhausting. It was a birthday, so I was like, "Hey, there you go," because we had these conversations.
It's a
So I
fun.
was saying my message right now is play more, because by playing we figure something out and we learn, we grow, and we
Yeah.
can open things that we don't even know that we have inside us. So play more.
Lovely message. Sometimes as adults, we get stuck into a routine of sorts, and we get focused and too much immersed sometimes in work, even though it can be very playful. So, Simona, thank you for this hour. I think there is a lot of mini lessons along the way. There are a lot of important information, I think, from our episode. So, first off, they would get to know you a little bit more and how hard it is to start speaking business as well, and uh, perhaps you can help you increase the conversion rate as well, to spend at least $7 into learning something new and investing in yourself.
Go on my website, and it's
there,
gtex.org.uk. You can find all the resources there.
there it is. It will be in the link in the description below as well. Simona, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in today's podcast episode.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here. I really appreciate it.